Some people love to boast about how strong they are and how much they can lift at the gym. But if you really want to test someone's fitness, just ask them to pick up this chair. You'll have to stick around to find out whether anyone actually succeeded in this seemingly simple task. And while I have your attention, have you ever wondered how smart a crow is, or what it looks like when a guppy gives birth? Would you try Pringles flavored ice cream? These are just a few of those amazing things you'll see in this episode of Things You Will See for the First Time in Your Life. The world is full of many mysteries, and back in 2015, rangers at Eisenhower State Park near the Oklahoma border encountered one of the particularly slippery kind. At first, they thought someone had left spaghetti in the middle of the road as part of some twisted prank. But when they got a little closer, they realized these were actually clumps of wriggling worms. The piles were lined up in a near-perfect straight line and offered no clues as to how they may have ended up there. The worms were only found in the back part of the state park that had been closed off because of flooding, and they stuck around for 2 days before heading back into the soil, leaving only their manure behind. Biologists now have two leading theories for this strange herding behavior. The first is that the heavy rains saturated the ground so much that the water forced the worms onto the drier parts of the pavement. The second theory is that the worms may have mistaken the sound of the rain for the sound of predators beating down on the ground, so they moved to clump together and avoid them. Anyone fancy spag bowl for dinner? When Disney announced that they would be releasing a live-action remake of The Lion King back in 2019, die-hard fans weren't so sure about it. The hand-drawn designs of cartoon favorites like Pumbaa and Timon were replaced by ultra-realistic VFX animals, which, according to many people, just couldn't live up to the classic. But visual effects artist Jonty Pressinger and illustrator Nikolai Mochkin set out to combine these two distinct styles using deepfake technology to see if there really is such a thing as the best of both worlds. The wide-eyed, expressive faces drawn by Mochkin in the style of the original movie have been blended seamlessly with footage from the live-action remake to create a visual style that is both realistic and true to the original. As you can see in these side-by-side shots, the lovable characters now have all the features which made them so iconic in the first place, from Scar's piercing yellow eyes and haggard face to Simba's bewildered, innocent expression. Listen up, Disney, maybe it's time to start making remakes of the remakes. It would take someone with a real sweet tooth to say they've tried every ice cream flavor on the market. But how would you feel about Pringles flavored ice cream? No, this isn't a sick joke. This, interesting ice cream creation was dreamt up by Helidos Roll on YouTube, a channel which is stocked full of the most bizarre flavor combinations you can imagine. To create this spicy dessert, the mastermind behind the channel first takes a tube of paprika-flavored Pringles and lays them out in rows on a flat metal ice pan. Next, they pour milk over the chips and use metal spatulas to smash them up a bit. And this is where it gets really interesting. As the ice pan reaches temperatures as low as -30 degrees Celsius and the milk begins to freeze, the Pringles, which are gradually cut into teeny tiny bits, begin to mix in with it. With more slicing, dicing, and chopping, the milky, Pringly mixture turns into a frozen goop, vaguely resembling ice cream, which is then spread out evenly over the pan. Now, if you've ever had ice cream rolls, a popular frozen dessert that originated in Thailand, you probably have a good idea what's going to happen next. After sprinkling on some more Pringle dust for good measure, the metal spatulas are used to create perfect, wafer-thin rolls of ice cream. The rolls are then served up in a paper cup with a squirt of cream, chocolate sauce, and some extra chips for decoration. I know Pringles are supposed to be addictive, but I'm not so sure about this dessert. Would you try it? If I said leaves could be exciting, you'd probably think I'm crazy, right? Well, check out this awesome video that was sent in by viewer BCJ Mythical, and maybe you'll change your mind. Wait, what? Is that some kind of optical illusion? Nope, it's just nature, bro. As you can see, when this lotus leaf is only part submerged, it isn't actually silver in color. It just looks that way. This is all down to the super hydrophobicity of the leaf, also known as the lotus effect. In some Asian religions, the lotus plant is revered as a symbol of purity. Their giant leaves remain clean despite the water and mud on which they rest. Scientists have found that the basis for their self-cleaning and water-repellent properties lies in the rough surface of the leaf itself. When viewed under a microscope, the lotus leaf has a series of tiny protrusions, known as papillae, which are then covered in bumps of a hydrophobic, waxy material. This combined structure traps a layer of air between the surface of the leaf and the water droplet, preventing it from ever getting truly wet. When the leaf is submerged underwater, it is covered all over in these tiny water droplets, which act as a mirror to its surroundings, giving it a silvery appearance. You really do learn something new every day. Do you want to earn yourself a shout-out? Just get in touch at clips@beamazed.com with anything weird, wonderful, or downright amazing you've found online. And you could be featured in the next episode. And if we like your clip enough, we might even buy it too. So what are you waiting for? There are certain things humans aren't built to survive, like, having your head chopped off maybe? But the rules don't always apply to animals. Just ask this slug. In case you're wondering, yes, that is a decapitated slug's head. And yes, it is still very much alive. This species of Saccoglossan sea slug was studied as part of a research paper looking into autotomy, which is the voluntary shedding of a body part, such as appendages or tails. The researchers identified a small groove at the slug's neck, which could act as a breakage plane to facilitate a kind of extreme autotomy. To test their theory, they tied a fine nylon string loosely around the slug's neck and watched as the slug automatized, that is, voluntarily chopped off its own head within a day. The pericardium region, which contains the vital organs including the heart, was left inside the body, while the head continued to move autonomously on its own. Researchers speculate that these Saccoglossan slugs can incorporate chloroplasts from algal food into their cells to use for photosynthesis, which may facilitate their survival after being separated from the body. While the severed body shriveled up and died, the slug surprisingly started regeneration of the heart within 7 days and completed regeneration of the whole body within 20 days. Researchers theorize that this unique ability seems to be a self-defense tactic, which allows the slugs to remove parasites from their body. This adds a whole new meaning to the phrase, "cut the toxic people out of your life." One of the most valuable lessons we're taught from an early age is to never judge a book by its cover. But based on her appearance alone, what do you think this woman does for a living? You might guess that she's a model or an Instagram influencer, but you couldn't be more wrong. Allow me to introduce you to Anna Kramstova, one of Vladimir Putin's very best soldiers. She may not look like your typical soldier, but that makes her even more impressive. 32-year-old mom of one, Kramstova was part of the National Guard of Russia, whose job it is to secure borders, take charge of gun control, combat terrorism, defeat organized crime, protect public order, and guard important state facilities. She has a family background in law enforcement and the military. Her father was in the army and the police for 30 years, while her mother was also in uniform. In 2019, Kramstova was named Russia's most beautiful soldier after topping a list of over 1,000 entrants to the contest, which asked servicewomen in the National Guard to upload their best pictures. But her good looks have been both a blessing and a curse. Not only did she face sexism on the force, but in 2020 she claimed she had been axed from the National Guard altogether because female colleagues were envious of her physique. Since being let go, Kramstova has hinted that she will try to appeal the unfair decision. One thing's for sure, I wouldn't want to get on the wrong side of her. If someone walked up to you on the street and offered you $350 to pick up a chair, would you take it? Of course you would, but you might end up regretting it. In 2020, fitness fanatic and YouTuber Vadim Cavalera, aka Buff Academy, took to the streets of Mexico with a challenge. The strongest person who could pick up this wooden chair would take home 300 euros. The rules were simple. The chair must be picked up by the bottom of the leg with a straight arm. No matter who stepped up to the plate or how much iron they'd been pumping at the gym, it seemed like the chair proved much harder to lift without toppling over than it seemed. But that doesn't mean it was completely impossible. What makes this simple thing so hard? Although the chair itself only weighs around 5 kilograms, it becomes incredibly difficult to lift from this position because all that weight is acting against your outstretched arm, which doesn't allow you to find a decent pivot point. Of course, Cavalera himself had no trouble stepping up to show people exactly how it's done. What a machine. Next time someone brags about how jacked they are, just give them a chair and make them prove it. Do you call yourself a dog person, or are feline friends more your forte? Caring for and feeding your pet may be one of life's simple pleasures, but what happens when you've got 10, 20, or even 30 mouths to feed instead of just one? Well, just take a look at this scene of kitty chaos and you'll find out. You're probably thinking, gee, this person must really love cats. The lucky guy on this clip, who goes by the name Carmano on YouTube, lives on a farm which is populated by a herd of cats. And when the herd gets hungry, they come knocking. Anyone else think this has the makings of a low-budget horror movie about someone living on a ranch and having to escape a bunch of hungry cats constantly coming after them? Well, thankfully, this guy had the food on hand to quell their hunger and keep them on his side before they overwhelmed him and ate him for breakfast instead. Who knew cats could be so intimidating in such large numbers? There are plenty of rituals us humans regularly go through to maintain our appearance. And unless you're intentionally growing them out, one of those rituals is nail trimming. But our four-legged friends aren't able to cut their own claws when they're getting a little too long. And that can result in a whole host of problems. Just ask this cranky kitten. This poor kitten was playing in his owner's room when his claws got stuck in the curtains, and now he looks like he's holding the entire fabric of reality together. Thankfully, his tiny mews were enough to tell his owner that he was in trouble, but they just had to snap a video before rescuing him from this perilous situation. This ticked-off kitty is definitely saying, "Don't just stand there, human, help me." What would you guess some of the world's smartest animals are? Chimpanzees or elephants, maybe? And what about crows? Believe it or not, these foreboding birds are actually pretty smart. You'll see for yourself. When presented with a selection of rocks and two tubes containing a tasty reward, one filled with water and the other filled with sand, the crow quickly establishes that dropping rocks into the water will make the water level rise, while the sand-filled tube won't have the same effect. This experiment was part of a study conducted by the University of Auckland in 2014. The crows were tested with 6 different water displacement tasks, and succeeded in 4 of them. In the second test, they were presented with heavy and light objects and recognized that the heavier objects would make the water rise faster. In the third, they chose solid objects over lighter ones, and in the 5th challenge, they even dropped objects into a tube with a higher water level rather than a lower one. However, they failed at 2 of the harder challenges, one which involved the width of the tube and another which required them to understand a more complex U-shaped tube design. Although they didn't pass every task, according to the study's authors, the results suggest that crows possess a sophisticated but incomplete understanding of volume displacement. In fact, this kind of understanding rivals that of a 5 to 7-year-old child. That's the last time I underestimate these surprisingly smart birds. Tattoos have always been a controversial subject. It seems like you either love them or you hate them. Of course, opinions are slowly changing about body modification these days, but I'm not sure this extreme look would go down too well with your grandma. Then again, this dude is old enough to be a grandpa himself. This is 72-year-old Magneto, real name Wolfgang Kirsch, who is officially the most tattooed man in Germany. Kirsch used to work in the post office in the GDR, and had to wait until the fall of the Berlin Wall in 1989 to get inked. He got his first tattoo when he was 46 years old and has since had 86 tattoos in 20 years, spending a grand total of 720 hours under the needle. As you can probably tell, 98% of Magneto's skin, excluding only the soles of his feet, is now covered in swirling patterns and colors, even including his eyeballs. You might not think it would even be possible, but scleral tattooing is the practice of inking the sclera, or the white part of the human eye. It's extremely dangerous and can even result in the loss of vision, so you've got to be pretty fearless to want to try it. As well as the intricate tattoos across his face, Magneto is covered with piercings, including flesh plugs in his nose, ears, and lower lip. But I haven't even told you the craziest part yet. Magneto's name comes from the fact that he also has 17 magnetic implants under his skin, which allows him to attract things like paper clips or coins. I wonder what happens when he goes through airport security. Nature is usually best left alone, but sometimes animals need an extra helping hand from us. In June 2020, YouTuber and outdoor explorer Soy Nativo caught wind of the story of a turtle that needed rescuing on the beaches of Veracruz in Vega de Alatorre, Mexico.
Doctora, buenos días. Aquí en el recorrido de la mañana encontramos una tortuga sepultada por la duna. Se derrumbó aquí el médano.
Don't see the turtle yet? That's because it's buried. The poor thing seems to have been buried by a sand dune, which are formed when high winds deposit sand on top of itself in the form of a big mound. Luckily, these kind men were able to spot the turtle poking out of the sand and started digging as fast as possible. To any passerby, this enormous shell might look like a big boulder, but there's a living, breathing turtle under there, struggling to get out.
Okay. Sí, se movió. Diego, buenos días. Mira aquí una tortuga que... Sí, está viva, está viva. Está viva. ¿Cómo te ayudo? Dime qué hago.
After trying to lift the turtle out from the back of its shell, they decided it's a two-man job and use all their strength to free the turtle from its front end after digging away some more sand.
Una. A ver. Eso es todo. Vamos a tratar. Sí, vamos a voltearla, vamos a girarla. ¿Para dónde? A ver, vamos a voltearla. Y ya tenemos. Eso es todo.
They eventually managed to haul the turtle out of the hole and place it on the sand, but the ordeal isn't over just yet. The men spend the next couple of hours rehydrating the turtle by dousing it in water as it finally breathes a sigh of relief, spitting out a mouthful of sand in the process. After about 2 hours, the thankful turtle has finally regained its strength and is able to drag itself to the shore and off into the ocean. I'm not crying. You are. What's the weirdest thing you've ever seen in your neighborhood? Whatever it is, I bet it doesn't quite compare to this. These kids in Japan could hardly believe their eyes when they came across an enormous wolf sleeping on a park bench. I don't know about you, but I wouldn't be getting so close if I was them. But the weirdness doesn't end there. Seems like this wolf can walk on 2 legs. You've probably guessed by now, this isn't a real animal, just an incredibly realistic fur suit created by talented Japanese designer Rady Wolf. Considering the suit is only made from airbrushed faux fur, it really looks like you could walk right up and pet it. If you were brave enough, that is. If I owned this suit, I'd wear it running errands at the grocery store, just to see what people's reactions would be. Fish may not be the most exciting pets, but most people underestimate just how interesting these aquatic creatures can be to observe. Don't believe me? Just take a look at this fascinating video of a guppy having babies. That's right, what looks like a semi-transparent little seed being pooped out is actually a newborn baby guppy. This incredible footage was filmed by YouTuber Tropic Tank in his own freshwater aquarium. A female guppy may give birth to as many as 100 babies, known as fry, during her lifetime. While each brood generally contains anywhere between 15 and 40 fry. The reason why the babies come out looking like they're already pregnant is because they're born with a large yolk sac that provides nutrition to the developing embryo. Soon after they enter the world, the fry will absorb this sac, and within 2 to 3 months, the fry will be mature enough to breed themselves, continuing the cycle of life. Gee, these are some busy fish. Which of these things amazed you the most? If you're not done filling up on amazing content quite yet, there's a whole buffet worth awaiting you in the previous episodes of this series, so why not check them out next? And don't forget to get in touch at clips@beamazed.com. And, as always, thanks for watching, guys.